All right, guys, good afternoon. Excited to get on the field today with our guys. Important week for our team. Chance to continue playing well against NFC North opponents. Try to play, obviously, a big emphasis on playing well at home, which we haven't done in all three phases of our team, and we're still on the hunt to do that. Got a couple updates for you. Carson Wentz had successful left shoulder surgery yesterday in L.A. Hope to get him. He'll be out there for a few days, and then hope to get him back. He's planning on being back in the building when he returns, continuing his rehab there, and then we'll open Ryan Kelly's 21-day window today. And then just so you guys are aware, J.J. McCarthy will have a little, bandage or coverage on the top of his hand. He hit it on a helmet at one point in the game, late in the game, and everything's checked out, but we just want to get out in front of potentially making sure you guys are aware from a communication standpoint exactly what that is. Don't see that affecting really his week of preparation very much at all. And Jonathan Greenard still would put him kind of in that questionable category. He won't participate today, but I still think he has a chance for Sunday, but at the same time, we'll kind of let the medical staff and Tyler and his group and JG kind of work through the week, and I'll keep you guys updated at that point. And like I mentioned on Monday, several guys we might give the day to just as we get into this chunk of the season, and then as we ramp up our work throughout the rest of the week, those guys will continue with their prep to play. But outside of JG, really nobody else on the injury report I have concerns for Sunday about.
Kevin, just to clarify, right hand or left hand?
Right hand. Yeah, he followed through on a throw to Justin, I believe, and caught one of our linemen's helmets.
Kevin, we're seeing more quarterbacks go under center. Caleb's doing it a lot more, and you've done this with Sam, JJ. Why do you think that the league is kind of getting back to that a little bit, and what's maybe the benefit of having JJ under center?
Yeah, I think, just as the league has kind of evolved with some of the gun aspect of plays and whether you run your quarterback consistently, whether you, I think there's a lot of offenses that, either ours, the family of offense we come from, the other people around the league, the marriage of the run and the pass becomes a little bit harder offsetting the back. Some teams, like Atlanta, have really featured the pistol to try to find the common ground of both, which they've had success with. I think it just comes down to what is the foundation of your offense. And then ultimately, I think by game, Matt, I know probably, you've even noticed it by some defenses, you'll get, some coordinators like to have defenses called where there's an alert gun and under. You get in the gun, they're going to play this coverage. You get in the under center, they're going to play this to have a better fit of the run game. And then, we've got CJ here, and those 21 runs can present problems with the insert of the fullback. We've got really a bunch of tight ends we feel good about running the ball with. So a lot of times it just comes down to, as an offense, what's the foundation of our plan for the week? Defensively, are we getting normal matches to our personnel groupings, base defense to 12 and 21 and nickel to 11, or are they going to play more nickel like we saw last week from Baltimore, really to all groupings, and then you kind of build your plan accordingly, trying to marry the run and the pass, and then, those weighty downs are kind of they're a whole different kind of game within the game. Good question, though.
How are you looking at with Ryan Kelly, knowing 2 concussions this year, but also a few previously? So how will you kind of think about this and approach it in terms of usually 21-day windows lead to activation?
Yeah, exactly. I think it's kind of just the next step for him. As I think I mentioned to you guys when we made the decision to put him on injured reserve, the idea was to have a concrete timeline that now we've exceeded, out of an abundance of what we think is best for Ryan. He's doing great. He really responded well to the work on the side field last week. This week is really more about getting him phased back into practice. He's going to be, I believe, wearing a new helmet, a guarding cap, doing some of those things from a preventative measure, but at the same time, it's how does he handle the work week? And then ultimately we're looking at this as not just the rest of this season, but beyond as far as Ryan goes. And as I said, I wanted him to be banging down my office door, and he's been getting pretty darn close to doing that. And luckily, I keep it open always, so there's not much effort involved there.
Kevin, with the personnel matching stuff, do you see teams play more nickel to you guys in all situations because Justin is out there, or do you get the heavy personnel groups when you go into 12 and 13?
I think it's a mixture, Ben. I think it's defensive personnel. You look at Baltimore, they made the trade to bring in Gilman as a safety. That allowed them to have Kyle Hamilton closer to the line of scrimmage, be more active, be closer to the ball. Derwin James, Jalen Ramsey's done that, either in L.A. or in Pittsburgh. You've seen him really play all of the spots. Us with Josh Metellus and how we've played at times with 3 safeties on the field, but really we're in nickel defense. The Bears go get a really impactful guy like C.J. Gardner-Johnson to play that nickel spot, and he's physical and has no issues being part of the run fit, blitzing, and he's a good cover player too. So I think it's more about how defenses want to try to defend you. And there's been multiple times we've gone into games and we haven't seen them play nickel to 12 all season long, and we've seen it in totality in the game we played. So we really have to, and vice versa. Like you think you're playing, I go back a couple weeks to Detroit, and we got, almost exclusively base defense for a good chunk of that game on normal downs. So I think it's just how people want to defend you, and you got to prepare for both. And then ultimately, find ways to move the football. Once you kind of see much like the coverage program to Justin that we've seen, it's an in-game kind of navigation of getting to some things. I think we've done a good job this year kind of assessing some of those things. Ran the ball well coming out of the halftime last week when we didn't particularly run it very effectively early on in the game, and it's just kind of an ongoing thing. But it's a big thing that I look for every single week, and just I'm more than likely prepared for the curveball than the fastball. That's just how I look at it.
Jalen Redmond's right in the heck of a story.
Yeah.
When you got traded Harrison Phillips, people were, oh, wow. You obviously knew what you had.
Yeah.
What have you seen in him? I mean, he's on track to become an elite run stopper.
Yeah, he is, it's now about, he's clearly established himself. There's a standard to his play. It's shown up every single week, and it goes back a lot before everybody kind of started to notice it for us, and just felt like he was a guy that we wanted to make sure was on the field as much as possible. And it's not just the run game. I think he's shown up as a rusher, his rush transition off of, playing his role in the run game, and then he transitions and can sack the quarterback, block shots, all those things. So I think he's a really good player. I think he's developed throughout his time here and really started to understand how he fits within the defense. And now he's getting an opportunity to be, a weapon in a lot of ways of playing multiple spots for a purpose and a reason to try to, shrink that run game menu of our opponents and allow him to be in a playmaking spot. So, glad you asked about him. I, love the player and everything he brings to our defense and our building every day.
Kevin, from what you've seen of the Bears offense, in some film this year, what have you seen the way that they're trying to get the most out of Trevor Ben Johnson's influence?
Yeah, he's Ben's, gotten the run game going, and then they're doing, I think their offensive line's probably not getting talked about enough. Darnell Wright, when I turn on the tape, I see one of the best right tackles in football, and I think their additions, at center and guard, have shown up and been pretty consistently healthy and been out there on the field gelling together. And they made the switch at left tackle, and you see the production that they're getting out of that position now. But the way Ben's calling it, the way they're limiting turnovers, they're forcing a lot of turnovers. We know that formula, pretty well as far as having a defense leading the league in turnovers and it equating to extra possessions, chances to win close games, in some cases allowing Caleb then to play really well and efficiently throughout the game, but he's also shown he can go get it at the end with his unique arm talent, and he's got, he's one of the more difficult quarterbacks in the league to get on the ground even when you get to him. We've seen that firsthand. So I think it's a mixture of just, Ben's doing a good job with that offense. They've got really good personnel, and the balance of the early down has kind of kept them in a position where if they've got to alter and try to go get it and get into that 2-minute phase, they've moved the ball there. They've played a couple different styles of games, but it's all really centered around winning the turnover battle, I think, in all 6 of their wins. And that's always been such a critical stat for us and something we got to get better at.
With Caleb, is there anywhere that you feel like he's really progressed since you guys saw him in week 1?
What I would say is, and we felt it in the game in week 1, just some of the throws. He can make the highest of level throw, whether it's play pass, on the move in the keeper game, different variations of, attacking downfield. And then when he does break contain, he can make every throw at that point too. And he's made some throws that haven't, necessarily ended up in completions that, you end up watching him a few times on tape just because of the high level of difficulty of the throw he can make in and out of the pocket. And that's something we've always known about him. But, like anybody, as they accumulate more snaps and, building off of what he did last year, you're seeing some of that experience kind of show up in a consistency now that's helping them win.
Kevin, on JJ, did you need to put some throw at all, or just to make sure that the grip or whatever's going on there doesn't affect grip?
No, it's more so just making sure that, if this practice was another 24 hours, it probably wouldn't have even been something we mentioned. It's just to make sure the swelling we got out of there from, kind of just a bruise that we just don't want it to kind of fester the rest of the week.
What kind of conversations did you guys have internally just coming off Sunday about pre-snap operation and what you guys going to do forward?
Yeah, I think, we identified maybe some areas where we can, have a little bit better, more poise to the communication. And that's not just the quarterback. That's, like I talked about on Monday, it's the huddle. It's the dynamic of the play call. It's the dynamic of, when we are motioning or we are trying to do some things for schematic reasons, where the emphasis on the cadence is going to be. We still, going back, we didn't really have a lot of cadences in the game. The frustrating part was, some of those that, seem to happen, and it's a discipline thing, and it's a poise and conviction thing to be able to, know I think there's such an emphasis on guys doing their job and the schematics and the fundamentals and technique, but nothing starts without us all getting off on the same cadence. And it got away from us in a pretty catastrophic way, and now we get a chance to, we've met on it, we've talked about it, the units talked about it, Wes and myself obviously, and the position coaches, and now we've got to practice in a way that reflects trying to put that behind us the right way.
Kevin, just big picture, league-wide, has it become more challenging to have patience with developing a young quarterback?
Oh, it is. I have long since understood that's what it is, and I think you're speaking in regards to not only the people in this room, but the people that fill seats in stadiums, the people that evaluate the quarterback position from many different landscapes. I've always known that. It's always been something. I think it's becoming more of a minute-to-minute, day-to-day, reflection and kind of final verdict that you're seeing. But at the same time, I think you've got to look at it both ways. You've got to, for every time there can be a moment where, is there a coaching point to be had? Is there something we can do better? Is there some consistency of simple principles that might enhance the ability to maybe eliminate some of those things that may cause people to have the certain, type of opinion. But in the end, it comes down to the things you are seeing and then building upon those, while also just like every other position, but maybe not as noticeable as the guy that has his hand on the ball every single snap and is responsible to deliver it from point A to point B and all the things that are very visible to everybody. And so I think we understand that, but at the same time, my job is to, not only by myself, but in conjunction with our staff and JJ himself, just continuing to coach in a way where, no stone is unturned. We're recognizing everything, progress, areas of immediate improvement. And then most importantly, what I look for is the consistency of being able to put some routine things in that category of I can expect them every time, and it becomes second nature. And sometimes when a guy's making his third or fourth start now or fifth start this week, it's a lot to ask in the midst of games, especially how they've kind of played out. But that doesn't change the fact that we're, in a business of, trying to go 1-0 this week. And JJ's going to have a great week of prep, and we'll continue to progress. And there's been a lot of encouraging things to go along with some things that, we can improve on. And he knows that. We know that. And that's just kind of where I get to be as far as the space that I'm in. And everybody's entitled to their own opinion and making that judgment whenever they feel like it's time to make that judgment. But that's kind of where I'm at.
In terms of, you probably don't see these things, but I think that there's been some discussion around play calling and maybe specifically in regards to run and pass rate on short yardage situations.
Yep.
Kind of assess your approach and execution in those spots.
Yeah, I think first and foremost, like in any healthy discussion, I think you've got to establish what are we talking about from a standpoint of 3rd and 1s, 3rd and 2s, 3rd and 3s, 3rd and 2 to 5, how defenses are going to align, based upon the front structures that they want to kind of get in. I think we've had multiple runs called in those situations where parameters maybe take us out of those looks, or we have a run-pass solution on them and we've converted, or we've had multiple run plays called on early downs where we've thrown the ball and got an 11-yard completion, got a 9-yard completion. And we look at those as statistically part of the run game. I know that doesn't necessarily fall under that category as a whole, but there's no question if we've had success specifically this year in the short yardage situations. There's been a couple, schematical things that have caused us to not convert, but more than likely when we get a hat on a hat and give the ball to JP or Aaron, we've converted those. And I think it's just a matter of, once again, like in the moment, whether it's the third and one chance against Atlanta early on in the year, or the 3rd and 1 from the other day. You as a head coach, and play caller, you're making the decision to, I can't really make the decision based upon missing an open player or having Justin one-on-one for really the only time all day, and that ending up, the last thing you think that's going to do is end up in an interception where you have that run play in mind for 4th and 1, and that's kind of like the quarterback discussion. I mean, it's play calling is something that we put a lot of work in as a staff, and I put a lot of work into it. And it's a results-based thing, play to play, game to game. Well aware of that, but that does not mean that I'm not always evaluating the best way to play each and every snap, sequence of games, and ultimately what's best for this team this year. And I'm doing that, and I think you'll see some things reflected in that, but also the defense has a hand in it as well. And the last thing you want to do is just do it for the sake of doing it and then have it be not as productive as you would hope, just to get some things in a column somewhere, a statistical column.
You mentioned that, but